Imagine a prison gang that calls itself a revolutionary movement, that claims its mission is to overthrow the US government from behind bars. This is not fiction, this is the story of the Black Guerrilla Family. In this video, we dig deep into the origins, ideology, rise, violence, and modern operations of BGF, and the shocking ways it operates behind prison walls and in US streets. Stay with me till the end, because I'll also reveal how law enforcement finally cracked major chapters of their operation, and how BGF remains relevant today. If you love hard-hitting gang history and insider stories, make sure you hit subscribe and ring the bell so you don't miss the next chapters of Gangster Chronicles. Let's get into it. Introduction to BGF and its significance. Before we get into details, let's set the stage. Who is the Black Guerrilla Family, BGF? BGF is an African-American prison gang that also operates on the streets. It is sometimes known as the Black Vanguard, Black Family, or Jamaa. Unlike many prison gangs formed purely for survival or power, BGF was originally ideological, claiming a political mission rooted in black liberation. But over decades, BGF has also become notorious for violent crime, drug trafficking, murder, corruption, and control inside prison systems. So why does this group grab so much attention? Because it's one of the few prison gangs that bridges radical ideology with criminal enterprise, and because its reach has extended far beyond prison walls into cities like Baltimore and states like Maryland. In this video, we'll follow BGF's origin story, key figures, ideology versus reality, rise and conflict, modern operations, major law enforcement takedowns, and the future. Let's start with how it all began. Origins and founding. To understand BGF, we must go back to San Quentin State Prison, California, 1966. That's where the seeds of the organization were planted. BGF was founded, or claimed, by George Lester Jackson, W.L. Nolan, and sometimes George Big Jake Lewis, while incarcerated. George Jackson is a central complicated figure, an activist, author, and convict. His book Soledad Brother became influential among radicals. However, historians debate the exact origin story. Some argue Jackson did not explicitly found BGF, but that the name came from references made in his writings, and that the formal structure of BGF solidified after his death. The ideological roots stem from the Black Power movement, Marxist and Maoist thought, and the desire to establish solidarity among black inmates against systemic oppression. In its founding, BGF declared its mission was threefold. 1. Promote black power from within prisons. 2. Protect dignity and rights of black inmates. 3. Overthrow the U.S. government as a corrupt, racist institution. They formalized these goals in an internal document sometimes called the Black Book, or the Black Book, empowering black families and communities in later years. Symbols and tattoos also became important. BGF members often use crossed machetes, rifles, a black dragon motif, or BGF letters, or the numbers 276. So from early on, BGF was a hybrid, political rhetoric fused with prison survival, discipline, and eventually criminal enterprise. Key figures and turning points. Let's highlight some key figures and turning moments that shaped the trajectory of the Black Guerrilla Family. George Jackson, 1941 to 1971. Jackson's life is central to BGF lore. He was serving a sentence for armed robbery and became radicalized in prison. In August 1971, Jackson was shot and killed during an attempted prison escape at San Quentin. The incident resulted in deaths of 3 guards and 2 inmates. His death elevated his status to martyrdom among radical circles and BGF adherents. W.L. Nolan. Nolan is sometimes cited as an early partner of Jackson and intellectual influence inside prison. Some accounts say he introduced Jackson to Marxism, but records are murky. Faye Stender and the 1979 assassination attempt. In 1979, BGF targeted Faye Stender, a lawyer who had defended Jackson and later allegedly betrayed him, or testified against him. Edward Glenn Brooks, a former BGF member, forced Stender to confess, then shot her 5 times. She survived but was paralyzed and later committed suicide. Conflict with the Black Panther Party and Huey Newton BGF at times claimed affinity with Black Panther ideals, but in practice, tensions arose. In 1989, Tyrone Robinson, alleged BGF member, murdered Huey Newton, co-founder of the Black Panther Party, in Oakland. That event marked a symbolic rupture. Modern leaders and expansion into Maryland, Baltimore. In Maryland, a key figure was Eric Brown, who wrote a version of the Black Book and helped expand BGF ideology among inmates. In 2019, Sean Bucky Thomas, a Baltimore BGF leader, was sentenced to 35 years in federal prison for racketeering and authorizing murder. These figures and events reflect BGF's shift from ideological roots to brutal real-world enforcement and criminal enterprise. Ideology versus reality. An essential tension in the story of BGF is ideology versus criminal reality. On paper, BGF claimed a radical political agenda, but in practice, things often diverged. Ideological claims. BGF described itself as a Marxist-Leninist, Maoist revolutionary movement for black liberation. The internal Black Book contains essays, poems, and guidance about upliftment, self-discipline, rejecting drugs, pride, and unity. BGF often spoke of combating racism, resisting white supremacy, and organizing within the prison system as a vanguard, the reality on the ground. Despite rhetoric, BGF is deeply involved in violent crime, murder, drug trafficking, extortion, robberies, contraband smuggling in prisons. In Baltimore's prison system, BGF bribed correctional officers to smuggle cell phones, drugs, weapons, and used illicit schemes to dominate contraband networks. High-level coordination via contraband phones allowed leadership to issue orders from inside prisons. Corruption was pervasive. In one indictment, 13 correctional officers were among 25 BGF members indicted for involvement in smuggling, bribery, facilitating contraband. So, while the ideology gave BGF a veneer of purpose, the practical operation often prioritized power, money, control, and criminal gain. This contrast, idealism versus crime, is part of what makes BGF's story compelling but also tragic. Over time, many of the lofty goals became overshadowed by internal feuds, violence, and corruption. Growth, alliances, and rivalries. Since its birth, BGF has had a complex network of alliances, rivals, and expansion, both in and out of prison. Alliances and support. Historically, BGF has allied with groups like the Black Liberation Army, Weather Underground, Symbionese Liberation Army, and other radical movements. In prison systems, alliances and temporary truces with other gangs, Crips, Bloods, have occurred in certain jurisdictions. Some sources also cite cooperation or alignment with Nuestra Familia, Norteños, or other prison gangs, though these relationships can be volatile. Rivalries, major rival, Aryan Brotherhood, white supremacist prison gang. Conflict is ideological and territorial. Other rivals include the Mexican Mafia, La Ime, and Texas Syndicate. In certain states, competition with local gangs over street-level control, drug markets, and influence pits BGF sets against many other criminal organizations. Geographic expansion. Originally concentrated in California prisons, BGF expanded eastward. In Maryland and Baltimore, BGF became one of the most powerful prison gangs. In Maryland, it was estimated that a significant proportion of gang-identified inmates were BGF-affiliated. BGF also tries to influence street-level operations, recruit outside, and maintain presence outside prison walls. This expansion and network of alliances rivalries made BGF a major player in the U.S. gang ecosystem. Operations and methods. How does BGF maintain its power? Through a mix of discipline, corruption, contraband, and coordination. Let's break down their principal methods. Prison control and structure. BGF has a paramilitary-style hierarchy, internal codes, initiation rituals, loyalty oaths, and strict discipline. Leadership often operates from within prison, with communication networks to lower ranks. They classify certain prisoners as working men, inmates assigned roles or tasks, with more mobility, who can facilitate internal operations. Contraband smuggling and corruption. BGF bribed correctional officers to smuggle in cell phones, drugs, weapons, and other prohibited items. They used green dot debit cards and digital methods to move money within the prison economy. Leadership used contraband phones to issue orders, coordinate actions, hearing grievances, collect dues. In Baltimore, corruption included sexual relationships between officers and BGF members, which strengthened influence inside the prison. Street-level crime and enforcement outside prison. BGF associates engage in drug trafficking, robberies, extortion, murder for hire, etc. Some associates may act independently or on orders from incarcerated leadership. BGF may collect taxes or dues from street-level operations in their territory. Communication and propaganda. The Black Book serves as both propaganda and internal manual, containing BGF philosophy, code, rules, and exhortations. Distribution of this material within prisons helps maintain ideological cohesion. Use of coded language, alias names, and encrypted communications to evade detection. These methods let BGF exert control inside prisons and maintain influence on outside operations, blending ideology and organized crime. Major law enforcement crackdowns and cases. No gang story is complete without the pushback from law enforcement. BGF has faced several major indictments and blows, Baltimore and Maryland prosecutions. In 2013, 13 correctional officers and 25 BGF members' associates were indicted for bribery, smuggling, and corruption inside the Baltimore City Detention Center, BCDC. In that case, officers smuggled drugs, cell phones, and other contraband in exchange for bribes. The leaders used contraband phones to run operations, issue orders, collect money. Sean Bucky Thomas case. In 2019, Sean Thomas, a BGF leader in Baltimore, was sentenced to 35 years for racketeering, murder, and ordering violent acts. The case revealed how leadership deep inside prison systems could authorize outside actions. Recent guilty plea in Baltimore. In early 2024, another member, alias Prince, pleaded guilty to roles in murder, drug distribution, robbery, as part of a Baltimore BGF enterprise. The plea describes complex coordination and violent enforcement, other crackdowns and disclosures. The FBI maintains a public FBI vault dossier on the Black Guerrilla family. In various jurisdictions, courts have incorporated BGF into gang validation policies, treating affiliation as a serious aggravating factor. These cases show the lengths law enforcement has gone and the inner workings of BGF's criminal network. But even after these blows, BGF adapts and endures. Modern relevance, challenges, and future. Even now in the 2020s, BGF is still relevant, yet it faces challenges that threaten its structure. Current presence and headlines. In 2023, BGF was rumored to be connected to an FBI Safe Streets raid in Baltimore. BGF has survived crackdowns by being adaptive, cutting off compromised lines, reorganizing, regenerating suppressed factions. Internal struggles and fragmentation. Because BGF does not always have a single centralized command, factions and internal disagreements sometimes arise. Some critics argue that BGF's radical ideology is mostly symbolic now, overshadowed by criminal priorities. Future outlook. With increasing prison surveillance, digital policing, and tougher prosecution, BGF must evolve or risk exposure. They may rely more on encrypted tech, sleeper networks, or decentralized cells. Their survival will likely depend on how well they can maintain internal discipline, secrecy, and control. For researchers, BGF remains a case study in how ideology and crime can intertwine, and the challenges of prison-to-street gang transitions. In short, BGF is diminished in many places but not dismantled. Lessons, reflections, and why it matters. Before we close, here are key takeaways and why the story of the Black Guerrilla family matters. Hybrid identity. BGF is one of the few gangs that claims a political mission while operating as a criminal organization. That duality complicates how law enforcement and scholars understand them. The danger of ideology in prison. Incarcerated people who organize around racial or political ideas can attract followers and create powerful internal movements. Corruption and power. BGF's success depended heavily on corrupt officials, bribery, and internal control. That's a reminder of how fragile institutions can be vulnerable. Persistence and adaptation. Despite crackdowns, BGF persists by evolving, reorganizing, and shifting tactics, a testament to its internal resilience. Lessons for criminal justice. Was reform. Understanding organizations like BGF offers insight into how to disrupt gangs, protect prison integrity, reform oversight, and prevent radicalization behind bars. If you enjoyed this deep dive into BGF, hit thumbs up, drop a comment with what gang you want covered next, e.g., Aryan Brotherhood versus BGF, or Blood's Origins, and subscribe so you don't miss future episodes of Gangster Chronicles. Until next time, stay sharp, stay safe.